So what you should know about working with this, so when you work with dates, what you should know as far as the big picture is there are two different types of what you can do. There is an older way that you might encounter, and then a newer way with an object-oriented approach, which is preferable, and going forward you want to use the object-oriented approach. However, you might encounter the timestamps, which essentially provide a way of formatting a date in a variety of different formats. And we actually are just working with some of these formats in WordPress, so that's a bit of a coincidental. So you can format with any of these characters, you can look them up again. That's the kind of thing you can just look up yourself. For example, a month with a leading zero, or a month with 3 letters, F is a full name of a month, and so on. And then you create your timestamp by passing some of these arguments to it. And some results you can see here. And you assign the result in a variable, so you can say date, and if you pass n, j, and y, the result will be 8, 11, 20, 14, or actually the date at the moment. So the equivalent format for today's date. And the other thing about timestamps is they start what's called an epoch that started in January 1st, 1970, and it goes through, I believe, I don't know if it's January, but 2038. So in 2038, there will be problems because the timestamp is represented as a 32-bit integer and is going to roll over. And it will be like another Y2K situation where we can expect things to go awry if we're not careful. And again, the reason why is because timestamp is represented as a 32-bit signed integer, so this is the max. When we hit year 2038 is going to be the max value that the 32-bit integer can hold, and what happens is when the max value is reached and you want to store a bigger value, it throws back to the beginning, so it will be very inaccurate. And actually the date object is going to provide a solution for that because it's implemented as a 64-bit integer. Okay, so here's some other examples. If you want to have it as a Monday, August 11, 2014, you're going to pass these arguments. And also you decide if you wanted to place columns or dashes, so you can insert those inside the function and it will give you the correct, I guess I can call this a delimiter again, between the different values. So this is a timestamp, and there are a variety of functions you can call upon from the PHP manual. You can look them up to work with timestamps. You can check time. So, for example, there is a function check date that allows you to validate the date that was entered, but there isn't such a date for time. So what you have to do is write your own, which is not very hard. You're going to pass hour, month, and second, and then use a compound logical expression. Can you make out what is happening here? Who would like to explain what is returned? Well, what happens here and what will the function return?
It will have to be true in order for it to come back true.
It will return true or false. It will return a Boolean. And what is it looking for here? What is it checking?
That they're all true.
Yeah, but more specifically?
The ranges.
Yeah, it looks like it's checking to make sure the hours are within the range. 0 and 24, minutes are between 0 and 60, seconds are between 0 and 60. So that's a possible time.
That's a plausible time, and it's actually 0 to 59, so it's less, not less than or equal, because the range is from 0 to 59. So these are the kind of things you can do with the timestamp, and then you can also define your own templates. Some other examples, and then we now have a datetime object. So this is an object-oriented approach to working with dates. And as you can see, if you recall, we have the format for creating a new instance of an object uses the new keyword. So now it's going to equal a new instance of the datetime object. And then after that, you get to work with the methods and properties of the datetime object. Does this make sense? Okay. And they have different formats as well. These are some of the methods of the datetime object. You can format the date, set time, set date, modify, and then also get convert between timestamps and dates. Right? And because it's an object, you can clone it. So it's an exact cloning means an exact copy of it. And we also have a date interval object. So that's pretty much what I wanted to show you, just so you know that there are two different ways for working with dates. And if you need to work with them, you can look up the documentation, look up all the different formatting options. And that's pretty much it. I don't think we need to do this hands-on. But you can, perhaps you may want, if you need to work with dates, let's say on your job, if you still have the slides, it might be helpful to go back and see some examples of validating the date or, some common tasks involving dates. All right.
I have a question. So, is there currently a fix for the point in time when the 32-bit one was
Yes.
not working?
Yes, so the fix would be to use the datetime object, which is implemented as a 64-bit.
Okay.
And can contain,
Object.
for all practical purposes, it's not going to run out of time, right? And so I guess let me say one more time, going forward, the way to go with implementing dates is to use the datetime object rather than the timestamp, right? But the timestamp it's used a lot, so you just need to be aware what it is. All right, now on to arrays. Okay, so with array again, we're going to take the same approach, do a lot of code snippets, and then take the time to also look at a more realistic application that uses arrays. So, who has, let's see, for how many of you this is your very first programming class? Anyone? One person? A couple of students? Okay. So the arrays are it's one of the core concepts in any class you take. And you once you understand it, it will help you. We also need to understand that PHP, the way it implements array functionality, it's a little different than other languages. So while the structure will be the same, some of the rules will differ. But it will still help you, I think, for other classes as well. So let's draw a picture of an array. Alright, so this is a one-dimensional array, and then if we have time, we're going to even talk about multi-dimensional arrays, probably on Wednesday. And what is an array? It is a list of sequential elements that are logically related. The array is going to have a name. So, for example, prices. And then it has elements. You're going to have these values. So the array also, another way to look at it is like a big special variable that contains multiple variables that are related with each other somehow. What we store inside the containers of the array, we call it elements, or you might also call it titled items. So these are items of the array. So if we have prices, maybe we have 55.99. 67.85, 15.35, and so on. And so that's just a list, but what is special about the array is that those values, what is special about the array? I know some of you can answer this since you took other classes before. What makes an array unique besides it has elements, it has a name, what else?
Indexes.
It uses indexes. It's the data in the elements in the array are indexed. And so we can refer to each of them by its index, which always starts at 0. And this is the index of the array. So in this array, we have index 0 through 4. And what is the length of the array? It's is equal to 5. And again, we always know now that the length is 1 more than the last index. An array can store any data type, not just numbers. And also right now we're looking at arrays that are indexed with integers, but later we're also going to look at arrays that are indexed by strings, and those are called associative arrays. So you can use a string or a number for your index. And I'll talk more about this later. But is this helping to understand what we're working with? Okay. So this is what an array is. And the other thing about arrays is that we are going to learn ways to manipulate the array, to put elements in the array, get elements out. And because the array is a list, it's not just one variable, we're going to have to use some kind of a loop. If we wanted to iterate through all the elements in the array, we have to go to each, essentially have a loop. So we're going to learn the ways with a simple loop and what we call a for loop, a for each loop rather, to access elements in the array. Okay. I'm trying to think if it's useful to go through the slides for you or just start coding. I'm just never sure on that. So would you like to go over the slides and then code, or do you just want to start coding and we'll explain as we go? Code. Okay, let's go. So let's bring up these examples. You should be able to run in PHP Fiddle. And we always have the slide as a backup, or if there is some confusion, we can go back and reference them. So how do we declare or create an array? And here is the syntax. The array is going to have a name. And the name is, again, you can think of it as a special variable. So for example, $names is the name of the array. It's equal to array. So this is a keyword, the reserved word in the language. And then in PHP, you can create an array in a couple of different ways. And one of them is to use the parentheses, and then you're going to state the values of each element that goes in the array. So the first name will be Ted Lewis, the second one Sue Jones, and they have to be separated with a comma. And the third one, Ray Thomas. And if we run this, nothing will happen, but we can use a function called print_r. And then we pass to this function the name of the array, names. And this function allows you to see the indexes and the values. So the index and the element corresponding to each index. So this is the first way to create an array. And you can add a comment. Create an array with one statement. And in the one statement is where you use the parents. You can also create an array with multiple statements. So we can have names 1. And so this is a different second array we're creating. And then if you're using multiple statements, you have to say is equal to an array. And this is going to create an empty array. When an array is empty, then we can assign items to the array by saying $names1, and then we use a square bracket, and then we put the index. So this will be assigning a name to the 0 index, which is the first element in the array. And we can give different names here. So let's say Annie Jones. Make sure to use names 1. That's it. Aaron Brown. All right, so if we wanted to see the values of the array, what would we do now? Same as above, we're going to call the printf function. So we have to pass it the name of the array, which in this case is named 1. Let me run this real quick to make sure I didn't make any typos. I did. Oh, okay. Printf is a different language. Print R. And then F9. And then we can put a break here, but other than that, you can see the second array displayed. So we can do an echo between them, I guess. Echo. Okay. Any questions so far? No?
I have a question actually. In PHP, do we never need to define how many values fit in an array?
That's a good question. No, we don't. And the reason why, so this is important. So Anna's question is, do we need to tell how big the array is, like for example in Java? We do not, because PHP, like JavaScript, is a dynamically resizable array. So it's dynamic, and therefore no.
So how does it handle, like say I'm comparing two arrays, and I don't know their length perhaps, but if they're different lengths, how does it handle that error that there is nothing to compare to?
So we get jumping ahead of ourselves. So we'll talk about it, but essentially, if there are no elements in the array, it will assign a null.
Mhm.
So if you have empty spots and empty, if you have nothing in a certain slot or index in the array, PHP is going to assign it a null. So it's going to think like there is something there. All right. Any other questions?
I have another question.
Okay.
Is there a function to find out the length of an array?
Yes, we're getting there.
Okay.
All right. So let's create also, these are arrays that contain strings, and we can also create arrays with numbers. So let's do another array, create another array. Discount. And we're going to use, so let's add a comment here, create an array containing numbers. And so the first syntax is going to be the one-liner, so 0, 5, 10, 15.
Misspelled array.
So it's not colored. Thanks. Still misspelled. Right. Okay, so here is the array, and again I need to put a break there, but you can see how it gives you the index and the value at that particular index. One, 2 is 10, and index 3 is 15. I should also point out that in many other languages, instead of the arrow that you see, what is used in other languages? A dot. It could be a dot for. Sorry, the dot is for calling functions and objects. So usually, if you want to access the index, you use the square brackets, and then you give it the index location, right? But we can also do this in PHP with the second method. So let's create another array with multiple statements. With numbers, with multiple statements. Okay. So let's create the discounts. One. And we create the empty array, and then we populate it. Oops. And now we have to specify where in the index. So 0, And that doesn't have to be 0. Five. Let's give it a different number. Let's say 6. And then again, print R. All right, so we have covered how to create an array with 2 different statements that are semantically equivalent, but the syntax is different. And we also now know our function we can use to print all, if we wanted to print all the indexes and the corresponding values. All right, so far so good? Are you still working or are you finished? Did you get this working for you, all of you guys? Okay. All right, so then next thing we're going to do is, let's say that we wanted to add more discounts or more names or some other additional items to an array. So how do we do this in PHP? And so we can create an array. So adding an element to an array. Let's say we have an array of letters, and it contains A, B, C, D. And now we can say and so the question is, where will PHP put the E? And we can visually see that by saying print underscore R letters. Where do you think, I mean, that's just a rule of the language, but where do you think it will put it? It's going to put it to the end. That's what seems like a reasonable expectation. So let's try this out and see if that's the case. Let me add another box here. Okay, I don't see a problem. Let's see. What is it complaining about? Unexpected
What about that
comma.
same error?
Oh, must have an extra comma there. Let's see. Mm,
You have to call array after you type letters. Call it an array for the paren.
Yeah, you're not saying it's an array letters,
Others equals
Oh.
array.
right? Where the
Array.
cursor is, it needs to say array.
Oh, right. Okay. So it's not knowing what it is. All right. So that's the problem. And then if we say F9, this should work. All right. And now we have. Wait, it didn't print it. This is. Oh, it did print it. Okay. So this is the last one here. And as we expected, if we just give an index without a value, it's going to add this to the end of the array. And now we have A, B, C, D, E. Yeah. What if we wanted to add a letter to a specific index value? Well, we can do that, and you need to keep in mind that if you specify an existing value, it will override it. So what was there will be overwritten by the new value. Let's do an example. So set the value for at a specific index. So letters 1 is equal to an array A, B, C, D. And now instead we're going to say letters of 0 is equal to E. Letters 1 of 3 is equal to F. Is equal to G. Let's print the array before we make those changes and then after. And print R. All right. Let's see if this will run the first time. I did. All right. Let me just make one small change here. That's wrong. Okay, so you can, I need to put another break here, but do you see how we replace the existing indexes with the items in the existing indexes with the new items by saying put something in slot 0, for example. We now have E we didn't do anything with B. We changed, we changed 5, 0, 1, 2, 3. So actually there is no 5, but you just added it because it's no problem. It's a dynamic array.
What
And if
happened
you
before?
add the index that was not already there, we'll just add it and it's no problem. Okay?
Could you show us how you add to not to number 4? Because I can't do it.
Well, sure.
Because
So
since there is no 4 right now, it's a null value.
it's a null value, and the reason why is because we didn't put anything there. The array had 0, 1. Let's see, 0, 1, 2, 3. It had
Yeah.
0, index 1, 2, 3, and then we said add to index 5. So if you want to add to index 4, what would you have to do? I mean,
Just do the same thing, but
right? So you'd
then,
have
so
to
it
just
doesn't
say
print out that it has a null, it doesn't print
No, but
anything out at
do
all.
it before.
So
So
do it if you do it afterwards, like so it's already set it now.
yeah, I
That's,
mean you
that's
can.
why I couldn't get it to work. Mine just puts it to the end, even though I say it.
If it says, did you say a 4? Index 4 should put it there. If you leave it blank, it will put it to the
Yeah, I
end.
didn't think it like.
If you do the 4, it should work. In other words, if we say letters 1 of 4 is equal to k, that should work. So let's see here. So you have 4. It's printing it in a weird order because of the way we sequenced it, but index 4 is k now.
But there's no way to. But it considers that it's there in the 4 space.
Yes, so it's indicating that it's put in the 4th index, right? But I would rather move it here. And also note that index 2 is C. Index 1 and 2 we didn't overwrite, and they are B and C as we want, in the order and as they were before we made the changes. All right, so go ahead and get this one working, and then we can take our first break, it looks like. And maybe do one more example. So now if we say letters 1, and then I give no index, and then I add S. Then as you can see here, if we give it no index value, it puts it at the end, right? It made a 6. All right. Okay, so after we finish this example, let's take our first break. We will continue from here.
Abby Hoffman's, what is the skill this book?
Oh, the skill is.
Yeah. You can just write a letter and get a free flow. Do that, but it won't upload when I got it. There's like certain programs in the government that like you write for it, the government is like, oh, yeah, come get it. And like as a citizen, you would have a right to a free bus. But you just get one. It's one of those weird things.
So you have to get paper for another buffalo, and I did you want to make one be female and the other be male. Except for garden, so it's separate positions.
Aren't there wild buffalo?
There are bison.
Bison.
Yeah. They're not the same.
So one thing I did like about this book is he said anytime someone sends you a postcard like for Donald Trump, and your postcard is postage stamp.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm about to go down myself. The phone go right, a couple phone books up and down.
So my friend got a bunch of like things in the mail for Donald Trump's support campaign, blah blah blah. And he's like, he Googled it and he said, no, you can't do it direct to the post office. And they won't mail it. But they did say if you put a piece of wood inside it and it won't bend, they charge extra for something that won't bend. And they also said to like use, I think it was like, they said take pennies to it and then put it on the piece of wood and then put it inside. Because it adds weight, it doesn't bend, and it increases the shipping.
Of course, Trump is our next president.
I'm kind of waiting to see like what the electoral college does. 'Cause that's like the final nail in the coffin. That's like irreversible at that point.
Well, if they impeach him, he has to commit a crime.
Which he's going to court for
Well,
fraud anyways.
No, but he has to commit a crime to his presidency. I think, maybe not, because I would think it wouldn't be retroactive. You know, there's that, part of law which you can't outlaw someone with something and then people past history.
So you think that if someone like if you committed murder, it must be like a felony. Because if you committed murder, like,
High
you're like,
crimes
oh,
and
yes,
misdemeanors.
before he was president.
High crimes and misdemeanors. It doesn't have to be a felony in order to get impeached.
So,
Other laws did that we did that for
Well, I mean, at the electoral college, I think there's been 3 times in history that the electoral college has gone against the popular vote. Yeah, the 2 times have been since I've had it.
Yeah, you know, like once it goes up on the road, or there's a word for an electorate. An electorate who doesn't vote when he's supposed to. But in 22 states, they can change their mind.
Well, in any state, they can do it, and that works for me. Yes. Small ones. But, you know, they have to do something, petition day in the electoral college to give the elections to Hillary.
No.
There's a
But I saw a petition that was telling Obama that he should elect the third sign the petition. Because apparently when they go to recess, he as the president has the right to do it without any action.
okay, so
So
you're
they're saying
supposed
like,
to
yeah,
use
when they go to recess, like, put it in a Supreme Court justice. Because you can't, if you don't, why wouldn't you? You know? Because at least if we had the Supreme Court, it'd be like,
and the Republicans would both houses, House and Senate.
I think so, I'm pretty sure they did.
Yeah, so you're going to be going over all of this. Basically, they said the last one was the Republican country.
Well, and Trump said the other day that he doesn't have any issues with that, like, but at the same time, it's like, we'll just wait till the big gets up. Then maybe he will.
But see, it's not legislation, it's. Supreme Court justice in there.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah, I'm gonna take it for this class.
Do you know if there's any help when we get up over the ITC?
Like here at the office.
Or someone if they were having a computer.
Maybe this. If I go to the lab and ask, I think actually there might be a tutor lab that's right now.
Do you know where that is?
It's right here on the wall and.
No, I mean just where the. Yes. The last name would be the substrate name. Starting at the first variable.
Yes, in a way.
Exactly. That's how I feel. That's exactly how I feel. All right. I think it's time to resume our
That's it. So you go there.
recording
You'll have
session.
a link. And you'll list them off.
Has it been 10 minutes? We kept track.
Yeah. Most of these requires in your cars.
I think it is. All right. So.
Can I ask you a question?
Of course.
Sorry.
We're being recorded, just so you know.
Okay, I lost a thumb drive. It lost in this room and maybe turned in. Did it appear or end up in the office?
There is a, it could be in 3 possible places. Check the computer lab right there, one. Check Lisa's office, the division office, or some people will turn it into security. So it could be
Where is security?
on the first floor across from the cafeteria.
Like by the questions place, like there's a.
It's more to the left of it. So
It's near the cafe.
it's near the cafe. Yeah. So I'll start there, go there, then the division office, and then finally downstairs. Hopefully somebody can do that. Okay?
Oh, yeah. I'm registered.
So what if we wanted to print the individual items of inside the array? Are you ready to resume? Let's do some more.
Ready or is it time to?
It's time to, and are you ready? Let's try.
I did good.
You will do this.
We will do this. You better be ready. All right, so this is going to show how to get the values from an array. And again, everything we're doing here is what we call a one-dimensional array, and you can only imagine how more dimensions become more complex to think about. So this is a one-dimensional array. It is pretty useful to have two-dimensional arrays in a lot of cases. Dimensional arrays. The one place that seems to be useful is if you can call them, I guess we call vectors would be in data science, but 1 and 2 dimensional arrays you probably encounter at your work at some point. Okay, so we have, let's create a letters 2 array. We have A, B, C, and B. And then we're going to create a variable and let's name it with the same name but a singular. So the array name is letters 2, and then we're going to create the letter 1 variable. Be sure to not, maybe I should name it something different to avoid confusion. Name it item 1 is equal to $ letters of 0, letters 2 of 0, too many arrays with the name letter, okay. And then item 2 is equal to letters 2 of 1, and item 4 is equal to letters 2, did you find it, John? Of 4. Did you find it? Did you find it? So let's echo item 1. Let me just test this out real quick, and then I will bring back the code. Oh, I see, okay. Looks like I forgot a dollar sign. Yeah, there it is. All right. Oh, interesting. It's not allowing me to. All right. Change this real quick. Okay. So the value of letter with index of 4 would be null, but it's giving me a syntax error, so I can't print it for you. But you can see now that if I wanted to get the item in a specific index location instead of all of them, then what I would have to do would be to store in a variable the content of that index, for example 0, and then I can echo it or work with it. And item 1 now contains the value of index of 0, which is A. And now let's print out index. Let's also print out item 2 and 3, and we should expect to see 0, 1, so 0. Why don't you tell me? When we print 2 and 3, what should we expect to see printed? A, and then what? A and what?
B and then D.
A, B, and D, because we're not printing index of 2 at this point. Let's try this out. And they'll print one after the other since I didn't use breaks. And sure enough, the result is printing A, B, and D, right? And if you wanted to print C, what would we need to add? Another item. I'll name it. So let me fix this. I'll make this 0, 1, 2, and item 2 is going to equal 2 letters 2 of 2. And now we printed all the items inside the array. And if we're printing all the items inside the array, we can also use the printr function to print the indexes and the corresponding values. Alright, what if we wanted to delete values from an array? How would we do that? So the next example will be delete values from an array. Maybe we should start a new page. We have a lot here. How about we start a new page? Save this. All right. So let's create, so I just started afresh since we have a lot going on here. A new array letters A, B, C, D. If I wanted to delete array with index of 2, I would use a function, a PHP built-in function called unset, and then pass it letters of the index. So in this case 2, which is going to remove the C. And let's print letters. And as you can see, index of 2 is no longer there because we unset it. Okay? And if you wanted to delete an entire array, so right now this was an example of delete one item from the array, right? So I have a comment there. And what if you wanted to delete an entire array? You'd still use, exactly. You still use the unset, and then you're going to pass the entire array without any indexes, and it will delete the array. And I'm not sure if it will print out now. Well, I don't think it will, but let's see here. The question is, will it give a syntax error, or will it, yeah. Wait, that's something else. Right, so it won't allow us to print it because it was deleted, as we might expect.
just delete the values, or does it the
Well,
or does it delete
we tried printing it
the
and it-
actual variable?
So we tried printing it and it didn't, it gave a syntax error. So what is your guess? What do you think?
I think the values is 0 because we unset the values, but we didn't actually.
The unset letters is going to delete essentially the entire array.
Okay.
And that's why when you try
so
printing
the
it,
name of that variable does not exist. In
that's
that
what, yeah, so
context.
that's why, let's
Alright.
show this again. Undefined variable.
Okay.
We can't print it now. All right, and again, as always, the functions that are built in the language, you see a basic use for them, but if you want to know more, what do you need to do? Consult the manual, and there will be a lot more. Maybe we should look at one of them just to get unset function PHP. Destroy the specified variables. So as you can see, it can get complicated. It doesn't just work with arrays, right? It can also, this is a global array, and so on. Right now, we don't need to be concerned with it, but as you can see, there is a lot more to unset than what we're using it for. We use it to delete items inside an array and to delete an entire array. Okay, another example. Use array elements with variable substitution. So if we have a variable name, Ray Harris, and we can echo first name. Do you have any thoughts without looking? How might we express if we wanted to print the first name?
The website name and in the square is the number.
So we want this to be 0, okay? And if we wanted to print the last name, and you can also have the function with the curly braces. Oh, 0. Or so this is still the first name actually. There's two different ways. I'm gonna run this real quick. Okay.
Is it better to use curly braces or?
I don't, it just depends. It's a little bit of a preference. I prefer not to use them, but they're pretty popular. I don't know that you can answer this with better or worse. It's more of a preference. Okay, and now you have first name. So if you need to print the index, and if you wanted to print the last name, how would you do that?
Just use index 1.
Meaning,
Same way, except you would use index 1 instead of index 0.
all right, let's try this. And sure enough. So you have to give it the correct index of what you're printing, and then it will print. And not just print, it's going to give you the value, and then you can work with it in the program or print, right? All right. So let's learn now how to loop through an array and work with elements, all of them together within a loop. And we're going to learn about several new functions, including how to obtain the length of an array, which, unlike other languages in PHP, is called count. So go ahead and add the new. Actually, let me clean this up and I'll start afresh. So this will be use loops to work with arrays. So in this next example, we're going to create an array with 10 elements and then use the random function to assign values to those elements, right? So we have $numbers is the name of the array, numbers, and it's an empty array. And then, again, we have a situation where we need to repeat something 10 times. So what might we use to do that?
For loop.
How about the for loop? For, and so it happens that the counter in the loop, we can start it at 0, and we can end it at less than 10, which will give us the 10 elements we want. And we can increment by 1. Okay, see it. So we can take advantage of the fact that an array is indexed with starting with 0 and then incremented by 1. And a for loop, also we can set a counter that is similar. Starts at 0, increments by 1, and goes to 10, right? Did you follow what I said? This was, right? Are we clear?
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, so this is important. And maybe, let me see. How can we do this? So in an array, if we have an array of numbers, and we have 10 numbers, the array is indexed 0 through 1. Starting at 0 and it's going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, however many. And a loop, a for loop, we can also structure it to start at 0 and increment by 1. So we have a it's not coincidental, but corresponding. We have a correspondence, thank you, between how the indexes are 0, 1, and so on to the length of the array and the loop. Right? So we have a correspondence. And so because of that, we can now say inside the loop for the numbers, we're going to pass, and we have to say numbers of I here, I think. We're going to assign empty underscore random. So this was the random function. We're going to assign a random number between 0 and 100. And then we should be able to print our numbers. Let me test this out. Right. And so these are the random numbers generated by the random function. And as you can see, the random, so they change. They should not be the same. All right, so get this example to work, and if you have any questions, let me know. So we are using again the counter and the index because they both happen to go from 0 through the length of the array.
Is there an easy way we can get those to print vertically?
We're about to do that. So let's look at the count function, PHP. The count function is going to count all elements in an array or something in an object. So our function to count how many elements we have there in the array is called count. In many other languages, it will be called length or len, but here it's called count. And now let's display the elements in an array. Display them without using the printr function. So we're going to declare a variable, number string, which is an empty string. And then we're going to accumulate the values inside the string. So for the same array, so we're still using the numbers array. So for I equals 0, even if we don't know how large our array is, we can now take advantage of this count function and then say the count of numbers. And this will give us the length of the array. In this case, it's 10, but we are no longer stuck with the fact that we have to know the size of the array ahead of time. We can now get it with the count function. What did you do? I'm not sure what to do about it. It's
The internet just had a glitch like on Wi-Fi. I wonder if it's school.
There was a glitch in the matrix, so yes. You guys didn't find this funny?
Yeah.
Come on.
It's the black cat walking by.
Right. All right. So hopefully it will come back up. I guess it was the connection. Okay, where was I?
Adam, we can try refreshing it because the PHP still just crapped out on me. I refreshed it.
Okay. And then we have to increment our counter. And then we're going to say numbers, string, not equal, which will be accumulating. So we're not overlaying, but we're concatenating to the same string numbers of I. And here we're going to use a space, and then I'll let you change it to use, if you want to display them one after the other, you need to make a small change here. All right, and then echo numbers string. Let's see. Let's see. This was a lot of error for forgetting to put the dollar sign somewhere. Let's see, where did I do that? All right, here. Okay. We don't like this. Okay, another thing to typo, numbers string. So this is the display from the loop. And as you can see, it doesn't display the indexes. Let me just clean this up a little bit here. So you can see the difference. If you're using a loop, it's going to just print the items, not the indexes. And sometimes that's what you want, right? And if we wanted to make this to display one after the other, is Liz want it? What do we need to do here?
Well, in PHP, or in PHP federal, it has to be the break. Quote.
Like this. And here you have it. So it's the same values the first time displayed through the printer, and the second time displayed through the for loop that we used. And the for loop is important because we also learned that you can use a count function to get the number of elements in the array. And you can use the count as the upper limit of your condition in the for loop. Questions, comments? Are we good? So let's see, what else can we do here? Maybe we can say echo. The length. Let's use the word, the count of the array. Or this array contains, how about this array contains elements. And then if you say it like that, as you can see here, the count will give you the actual length of the array, and we can say this array contains 10 elements. Right? So we can use it, we use it in a couple of different ways. No luck, it's not starting. Let me stop screen share and see. I guess I'll stop the broadcast. Does it come back sometime? All right. Can you work with a few more examples? Can we get through a few more? Star, do you have a question?
I just haven't gotten past the last one, so I can't get it to work.
Okay, let's take a look. Is anyone else having troubles? Are you having troubles since you can see the code? Do you want me to take a look? I'm going to post it and then you can look at it there, I guess, after the fact if you want to. Try to at least follow here, I guess, for now. I'll post it as a Google Doc. You can run it and see. All right? Are we good?
I didn't have that right. So.
Are you raising your hand, Nima? I'm sorry, which one? What line? So this is going to concatenate. Let's try without it so we can see what it does. So Nima asked the question, what is the dot here doing? And let's remove it and see. So let's run it with a dot. Take a look at the result. So if we're printing from the loop, this is what we get, right? With the dot there. And then if I remove the dot, then it's just overriding itself. It's overriding the value instead of adding on to it. So the dot is a concatenation, and it just keeps on adding. It's like plus equals in other languages, right? So the dot concatenates to the existing string additional values. If you just say equal, it just overrides, and that's why it ends up with the last one. Does this make sense now? Okay. So we do want the dot there. Right here. Okay. All right, let's do a little code snippet to compute the sum and an average of an array. And maybe I'll clean up again the page first. Here, I'm going to pause this right now if you want to start looking at it. So give me 1 second. I want to post the code we have done so far, since we have these issues with YouTube not working. I'll put it in week 8 modules.
YouTube's not working.
I think the network dropped them there. I'm sorry, I know it's a
I
YouTube.
thought you meant YouTube wasn't working at all.
Array. Examples. Source. All right. So create a new array, prices. See if you can. Do you remember the syntax now for creating an array? Right? And this one is going to be with numbers. The decimals. Mixed actually.
Don't you want that to be dollar signs though?
We always do it, just make typos sometimes. So this is going to be compute the sum and average of an array. So what would be the sum? Let's talk a little bit about it. How would we compute the sum of the array? What do we need to add together? Everything inside the array, right? And then how about the average?
You have to divide it by the length.
Divided by the count.
We're going to divide it by the count of the array. That's exactly what we need to do. So we need to add up all the items inside the array together, and this would be the total, the sum. And then we have to divide the total by the count, which will give us 1, 2, 3. In this case, we have 4 elements. And this will give us the average. And now we need to figure out how to make this happen in PHP. So we are going to be going through all the elements in the array, therefore we probably need to use a loop, right? Let's use a for loop again. And it's going to start at 0. It's going to go to the count of the array. So should we say less than count or less than or equal?
Less than.
Less than. Right? Is everyone clear why? Because for the same thing, we keep on coming back to the index is always 1 less than the length. All right? And now What are we going to do inside the loop? We're going to do something similar that we did with the string names. We're going to keep on accumulating the sum in the same variable, which we already declared as a sum, plus equal in this case. And then prices of I, so the index. And then we're going to declare average. And we have the sum. So we declare the sum outside of the loop, so it should be available to the program. And then we have to divide it by, how would we say in PHP, by the length of the array. Count of
Open.
prices. And then we can echo let me test this out.
Single quote on line 13, that's on the very end.
No. Okay. That's probably it. Okay. Add some spaces here. So the sum is 76.85 and the average is about 194.215. And if you wanted to, you could use the format to two decimals, but we won't worry about it right now. Do you see how this example is similar to the string, to the previous example where we printed the values? Okay. All right, I'll give you a minute or two to work through it. Make sure it's working for you.
Since PHP apparently cares about whether or not variables are initialized at some point, is it a good idea to initialize all your variables before you start using them?
This is always a good idea, because then you know what is it.
Because that's what we, in the mainframe program I did, we always had to initialize all of our variables.
Some languages require you, some don't, but it's always a good idea to initialize it so you know where you're starting it. All right, maybe try changing. Here's what, how about try changing the values, the prices inside the array, and also how many you have, and then run the program again and see that, verify that it works with a different length. So in other words, make it have different prices and make it have more. Maybe instead of 4 make it have, let's say, 7, and then run it again. And now just let you work through this for a couple minutes. Let me take a look and see. Was this working for you? So what do you think of arrays? Do you have any thoughts about it? Usually, I don't think I know any array jokes. Except, oh, you know what? The one I posted with the index,
It uses an array.
it actually uses an array, so maybe I should see if I can find it. It was pretty good. And maybe I don't know. I'm just working through examples, but not this question. Did you go through the exercise of changing the numbers in the array, the prices, changing the number of elements? Did you find any good ones? Maybe I'll show, I don't really want to log in here, but I guess I will. I think many of you already saw it anyway, but. Where is it? Well, this is as close as Erin and I can come up with an array joke. So you can you tell me why it's an array joke? What makes
Starts
it?
with 0.
It's indexed at 0.
I thought this was really
It's pretty accurate.
yeah, it's pretty accurate, right? So a list of steps in the development process indexed with 0. All right. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about creating an associative array. So this is a new, additional topic. All right, so as we discovered so far, we can create an array with indexes that are numbers 0 through the length of the array. But in PHP and in many other languages, or in some other languages, you can also use strings to be the indexes. So as we refer to these strings as keys, and they form key value pairs, right? So here is an example. It might sound a little bit confusing, but an example should hopefully help. You want to use key value pairs with strings when your index is somehow in a relationship with the value. For example, you have tax rates for different states, and then you can associate each state with the appropriate tax rate. The other example that I used to show was each state has a word that it represents it, so you can have the state would be the key, and then the type of word that is the official word of the state would be the value. So you can create an associative array for representing this kind of information. Or you can have an associative array to represent state and then the capital of each state. So Olympia, CA, Sacramento, and so on. All right. And so give me a couple more examples where it might be appropriate to use an associative array. You can think of.
Item and price.
Item and price.
Yeah, if it's a database of, or well, an array of whatever you're selling in your store.
If the items are represented as strings.
Yeah.
Okay. Karen?
Class and grade.
Class and grade. Yeah,
Of course.
you could do that. That's right. So there is again a key value
Course and credits.
relationship. Let me think about this one though. You have a class, you have more than one. You might have more than one grade associated with it, so I'm not sure. Kira, you can have a class, but then you have multiple grades, so it's not, I don't know if that's.
You're saying if you're doing it for your own purposes of keeping track of them? Like
Oh,
after
okay.
you're taking
Oh,
and
you
the
would
grades
individual.
that you got?
That would definitely work.
Yeah.
As a student, that would work.
Yeah, but not as a teacher.
But not as a teacher. Any, one more?
Coloring?
Pixel to color.
Extra color.
So each pixel is represented as a string. We want the key to be a string. The key will have to be a string. One more.
Country and international calling code, so like for the
For
US,
sure.
001 for Saudi Arabia 996.
Yeah, that's the right. That doesn't work well. Okay. All right, well, let's create an associative array. Here. I think I already included this. Create an associative array with one statement. Okay, so tax rate, rates, would be an array, NC. Then use the arrow to connect the key to the value. 7.75 CA 8.25 and Y 8.875 and let's use the print R. Just test it out. And so here is what you should expect to see. And if we created the same array with multiple statements, create with multiple statements. Name it tax rates 1. And then what would be the index of the first one? If we're doing the same array, but we want, it would be 0 if we're using numbers, but we want to use strings. And it turns out we can, so we can say, for example, NC for North Carolina. And then the array with index of North Carolina would have the tax rate of 775. And then the same way with tax rates 1 of California. And Y. And you can see both arrays created with the two different syntax rules, but they result in the same content of the array.
Isn't it such that we not have a number index?
Right, so the index would be the keys are considered the index, the state in this case.
So
That's
it's,
right. And you can see this here when you print them.
yeah.
Remember how we used to have 0 for the index? So it's using the key.
There's no way to iterate an associative array.
There is. We haven't gotten to that. The way to iterate on associative arrays, there's a special kind of loop. It's called for each. And it's just a high-level loop to work with objects, and I'll show you that probably next time.
And then just move down one at a time.
and the for each loop is going to go through each item in the array.
Does PHP make a distinction between a list and an array?
Well, a list is a more general.
You can array is a
It
list.
doesn't have a. There is no structure that's called list that you can refer to, but the array is a type of list. All right, so let's see here. What else we have? What time do we have? 5:35. Let's do a couple more examples of associative arrays, and we'll probably leave it here for today. And we have a lot more to cover next time. And some of the things we cover are going to be the how to work with stacks and queues, and these are common interview questions. Although normally, I don't know if. So I guess I'll talk about it more next time. But we do have more to cover. And part of the plan for next time would be to look at the example for the. I think it's a managing task list that is implemented with array. Understand it, and then your homework again will be to make some changes to it again with the use of arrays. Okay, but I think we have time to just practice a couple more examples with associative array. So if we have the country codes example, actually, should I just let you try another one without, would you like to try one of your own, or would you like to practice one more together? How about I let you do the one with the state and birds? So let's,
list one.
you want to do one more together?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, so let's do the country code then. So with the country codes, we're going to have the country code is going to be the key, and then the country is going to be the quotes again, the value. And then Japan. And you don't have to put them on the same line, by the way, as white space is ignored. So Japan, Argentina, USA, and again you can see the indexes as strings and the values. Okay. And let's create one more, a different one. Let's see. Actually, I don't want us to do this because it's not a good practice, but it turns out that you can mix numeric indexes and string indexes in an array.
That sounds confusing.
Sounds like such a bad idea.
It's a confusing, bad idea that I don't know why PHP lets you do it, but it does. But you shouldn't do it. But
If
it's
you do
possible.
it, does it put the numbers in front of the strings or after?
Okay, I'll show you what it looks. Let's do it to show what it looks like, but you should not.
It's like go to.
Don't do it after that. All right, and this will be our last example for today. So employees array. And we can have employees of 0 is Mike. Keep on forgetting the dollar signs. There we go. Employees of 1, Joe. Annie. And then employees of senior, Mike, and employees of junior or newest, so let's see. All right, and
You got the employees are spelled wrong in a couple of places. Line 15 down.
let me take a look here. So Jake is.
You dropped the O out of employees in 15 and 16.
Thank you. Let's try this. And you can see here the mixed array with numeric and string indexes. All right. So let's stop here for today and then finish up your examples. Let me know if you have any questions. And we're going to continue working with arrays on Wednesday. And again, this is not an example. This is, you can mix numeric and string indexes, but not a good practice. And I added all the examples to week 8, so if you need to reference them back, if you didn't finish it, it's there.
When you get a chance, we got a big question for you.
All right, I'll be right there. What do you guys think?
It's like a couple pages ahead. I'll tell you, I'll start this. You know, we're saying
Yeah, but you try to sell, then just. Sorry?
Taking me like 60 hours. I don't like to do anything else. Like one place.
Have you, are you free on, I mean, Wednesdays and Thursdays, 1 to 5? Or 3 to 5 on Thursdays? Mark?
This time, you just see, if you just print the, what you should be able to print is this.
I'm sure it knows that. But Mark is.
It's outside the book, so I just
When I
want
was
to.
After the hours, you say it works. And I can area try to find out why my won't work.
Okay, so it's going to
I
stay.
tried everything I could find it.
So what
I would,
we see, what
I would
we
just have
say
Sonny
is,
that. It's like, I don't know if she wants, like, no, I'll help you work with it, something like that. You don't wanna go over that. But like, just say, send a message to Sonny, because it doesn't kind of like, yeah, here's the answer.
just get it to work first and then you can have the list.
So we'll say she can help me.
I think it's, I think
We can ask her now, like, I mean, if she's fine with the other day, we can do the correct one. Right, do you see this, or? No. It's that, alright.
Alright, try this.
I found out when we were working with you. It's really dry, but that's.
Yeah, it's alright.
I was gonna do it like 3 times, but right now we do redundant.
Yeah, it
They
just
just
works,
take already.
and then you just, I guess the list items were somehow.
I don't wanna get Dr. Google telling me how to fix that problem. Fix it. No, I mean, just have to, cause I was, I've got some fingerprints and,
Well,
and
you should be able to use this item, but it's working now, so.
and there's of course a password we have to have. And then I started using OK Google and I realized I didn't have to go back downstairs. I have to use my fingerprint, and I know I can.
Maybe the way we're concatenating, maybe the list item works fine, but the way we're concatenating, I have an issue. So look at that, but there, that works.
I called
So that's,
they,
okay.
Google's in the.
I think too, I think they do. I feel like counting out, what's kind of cool about that is I feel like they're doing like Google Docs and Excel stuff. And then basically like, taking out a need for a word at all in Excel. So I think we're bored. Let's make something that's even better.
Alright.
You have a day over there to do
You didn't get a chance to look at your homework. You just go to work, you get those to work?
No, I gave up.
On the homework? Alright, well, you can.
Could I ask, him, could he send me the code so I can see code that does
Yeah,
work?
sure. You can, I can send it to you too, so that's for assignment 7. That was the string language. Alright, I'll send you a snippet right now.
Because I'm spending unlimited time trying to do this. I can't, I tried like 7 different ways and none of them work.
Let's see, this was assignment 7. And again, that's where you need to print out the name and the phone number, first name, last
Yeah,
name.
you need to validate them.
Okay. Hang on, let's see here.
That's what I phrased.
when you're exercising for a couple weeks, it'll pop up. Your body retains nutrients because of stress.
Okay, I'll send you the.
Your body goes, I need to hold on to this because who knows what's happening.
I'll just send you the index PHP where the answer is to your question, and then if you need the other files, let me know. But here we go.
Some kind of open version
So that's A7
Yeah, like 3 years ago.
solution.
Well, but all these students
I'm gonna take the PhD class next quarter.
Okay, I sent it to you. Please don't share it with anyone.
No
Because
way.
I keep on using it all the time.
I don't know, I won't share with it.
All right, thank you.
Is there a way to convert the string into an array?
Yes, they are. You don't have to do this for this assignment, but yes, they are such functions.
I'll just enroll in that.
You can
Just-
convert it.
Just look up
And
convert,
maybe they can offer JavaScript commands. also
just
kind of
Google
and pay for it.
PHP convert, string.
String to array. I think it's